My name is Sue Wells. I'm a Waikanae resident now, but for my sins, I was a Christchurch City Councillor last millennium. True. First elected when I was 4 years old. So I know the ropes, which is why Council has invited me to set the questions which will be put to these fine folk this evening. We've done a draw out the back. The order of the debate will be complete, has been randomised using the very high-tech method of drawing numbered golf balls out of a brown paper bag, and so we will be working off that. I have written the questions. I have written them off the Kāpiti Coast District Council's pre-election report, and I've also been watching with a great deal of interest what's been discussed within the community. So if afterwards you think I've missed anything really important, I'm the one you complain to. In terms of health and safety, for those of you who are with us in the audience tonight, exits are clearly marked with the little green running person. Wharepaku bathrooms are out the doors, and if you go out when you came in. Now, it is a great crowd here tonight. We would have, how many does this theatre seat?
300.
We've got a solid 300 here, so I'm going to fine every single one of you whose cell phone goes off $1.50, and I reckon that'll be good. So if you wouldn't mind just putting your cell phones on silent, please, that would be really very much appreciated. In terms of audio and video for this evening, no flash photos, please. These are not rock stars, these are your mayoral candidates. There will be official photographs being taken by council. If you need anything for your own personal video collection, goodness me, I'll shudder to think what else you've got on there. So there we are. In the event of an emergency, the staff here of the theatre are the ones who will be leading, but what I say to every group where I speak these days as a Cantabrian, if I'm not panicking, you're not panicking. All right? For the folks at home, thank you so much for joining us on the live stream. Very much appreciated, whether you're watching this tonight on the 22nd of September or at some other time. Just make sure you remember to vote. Now, before we get things off, well and truly, I am going to offer a karakia. E te whānau hui, whaia te mātauranga kia marama. Kia whae take ngā mahi katoa, tūmaia, tūkaha, aroha atu, aroha mai, tātou ia tātou katoa. For this gathering, seek knowledge for understanding. Have purpose in all that you do. Stand tall, or sit in this particular circumstance. Sit tall, be strong, and let us show respect for one another. Tēnā tātou katoa. Ladies and gentlemen, may I introduce, in no particular order, your candidates for this evening. On my left, right, on my other left, on your left, my right, is Rob McCann. You may clap now. In between Rob and next person, whom I shall name in due course, Liz Coe. Sitting closest to me in this new revised lineup, Kim Hobson. On my other left/right, Dean Harris. And in the middle, Janet Holborow. Finally, Martin Halliday. So just to confuse things, before the debate, we drew numbers which do not actually reflect the seating order. These are the ways in which we're going to randomise who gets the questions throughout the night. But the first speaker up, whose name came out of the ballot, who will now deliver a 3-minute speech. By the way, I should introduce our council timekeepers down the front. Would you like a ding, please? There will be a ding at 2 minutes, a ding at 2 minutes 30, and if you're still going strong at 3 minutes, there'll be a forest of dings. So first up, we're going to do a 3-minute prepared speech. There will then be a series of questions which all of the candidates will answer. And then at the end, they're going to get to do their elevator pitch of why they think that They should be the next Mayor of Kāpiti. Without further ado, first up for the 3 minutes and remaining seated, thank you, Rob McCann.
Kia ora. Is that mic working? Ko Rob McCann aho, and this is really difficult to sit and talk to you, so forgive us if we start flailing our arms around. Today, I believe we're going to look at the council report card, and we're going to get you to evaluate the council, because that's what you need to do before you go out and vote. The incumbents, they will tell you how well the council is doing and that they are A+ students. The challengers are probably going to tell you that they're heading off a cliff about to plunge into a canyon of debt. I myself think it's somewhere halfway in the middle. The report card is not all bad. There are some things that council have done really well. Water infrastructure, they continue to invest. The libraries, Waikanai's about to get one, the other ones are still up and standing. Parks and playgrounds, great job. But if I'm looking at the report card, there are a number of comments that I think I need to report, and they say they need to do better. Unaffordable rate rises, poor communications, waffly, priorities bit lacking, lack of planning. So I'm going to tell one story from the last week because I think it sums up all of those things. We were at Kāpiti Youth Support, KYS, for what was called Pizza, Pals and Politics. And it was a great event. And the rangatahi stood up at that event and asked, why had KCDC cut their funding to KYS? Now, the Mayor strongly objects to the word cut, but let me explain. This funding was from something called the Social Investment Fund, and each year there's around about $400,000 that's allocated. Often they are allocated for 3-year contracts and they're just about to run out, I think. They help build safe, resilient communities, and they help keep everything in our community ticking over. Now, sometime around the long-term plan process a few years ago, staff advised the councillors or the Mayor that there was an issue that, I don't know whether it was capacities or priorities, but the social investment process was about to go on hold. And that meant no one could apply for new grants. Not age concern, not the neighbourhood support, not Kāpiti Impact Trust, not Birthright, not Energise or Taki, the list goes on. All of these agencies were left out in the lurch. But the Mayor will tell you everything is hunky-dory. Ladies and gentlemen, I ask you to look at that report card and wonder why that young man had to stand up and be worried about the future of a KYS program, why the pensioners are worried about 30+% rate rises. Well, there is good news from that story. The Mayor scrambled and has been able to announce a $30,000 discretionary fund for KYS. But when you look at the report card of this council, do you want a council that listens just before an election when everyone's paying attention? Because if you want a council that always listens, and if you want a council that will work for you, then there's one phrase that I ask you to remember. It's that McCann can. Thank you.
Thank you very much. Up next, the second one out of the ballot, Dean Harris.
Hi everyone, my name is Dean Harris. A little bit about me. I'm a qualified builder with my own building company and over 40 years experience in the trade. I also owned and operated an import sales company travelling to China, Asia on buying trips and operating out of a 10,000 square foot warehouse with sales staff located throughout the country. I became involved in local politics because of my concern where rates are heading as a ratepayer here on the Kāpiti Coast. I was also involved in helping community groups fighting a document that was being presented called Coastal Jacobs Report. From there, I had an understanding of the undemocratic process that was, in my view, being orchestrated in the district, and that the concerns of the ratepayers were not being taken into account. It was a formality. From there, a group of us has been analysing council expenditure on the long-term plan, annual plan, and I have in my hand the third revised vision of the KCDC financial analysis, of which we have dissected every aspect of available records to us through official information requests. I can tell you confidently that we are able to get the council expenditure under control, and I will have more on that in the Q&A. However, we have done our homework, we have the information, dissected it, and we know what we propose is achievable without cutting services. This election, you need to vote wisely. With a 115% increase of rates equates to another $100 million taken out of the local economy. The lifeblood of this district is small businesses. When you take another $100 million out of the local economy, what is that going to do to local businesses like coffee shops, bakeries, the little stores, and all those discretionary income businesses that are our community? With rates doubling, that $100 million is going to go to the council coffers for them to spend. How are you going to find another $4,000 per year to pay your rates? You need to vote wisely, and you need to have someone that is going to be prudent, fiscally responsible with your money, guardians of the community, and a team that has a vision of where Kāpiti needs to head in the future. I have a vision. We need to bring more tourism and be business friendly. We need to be actually, for once and for all, lobby central government for better health services, better schooling, and we need a vision for housing. How it's sitting right now is an absolute train wreck, with housing development set to pop up like toadstools in every district. We need to create a structure with council and the mindset change. Business brings employment, employment brings knowledge, and knowledge creates more business, and then you get a snowball effect. Right now it's not working, and we need to turn it around, and I believe I'm able to help achieve that. And not only at the expense of ratepayers to the tune of $31 million, like the Economic Development Fund is projected to do right now. You need a team of prudent, knowledgeable people that know the concerns of the community, work for the community, and better community. So McCann can, Dean does. Thank you.
Gets a bonus point for being exactly 3 minutes and not a penny more or less. Thank you very much. Kim Hobson.
I don't normally read speeches, but this one I needed to get a lot of information across. Oh, hang on. Yeah, I don't normally read speeches, but this one I need to get a lot of information across. Welcome residents, supporters in the wider community and those online. Thank you very much for Kāpiti Coast District Council and Kāpiti College for hosting this event. Good evening. My name is Kim Hobson and I'm standing for Mayor only to show 100% commitment to this community. I was born in Lower Hutt and I have been married 27 years with 3 high-achieving children from local Kāpiti schools. They have since progressed to universities. I started my first business in 1984 and returned to New Zealand in the 1990s into the electronics sector. We moved to Pauparam in 1999, where I started a new business with my wife, Access Security, in 2002. To continue securing people, property, communications and intellect property, our primary clients are government, their agencies, defence and in corporations. While I was doing the core infrastructure, we have later specialised in securing them against and investigating espionage. This is the reason why I have a very small online presence, and because I know of the privacy issues and consequences that these relate to. To many, I actually am known as the Invisible Man. I am politically neutral and belong to no groups or movements other than New Zealand Model Powerboat Association, which is one of my hobbies. My career and journey, I have been involved in negotiating outcomes across many industry sectors: transport, explosives, energy, communications, finance, and building compliance. What can I deliver to Kāpiti District as your elected Mayor? Transparency builds trust. If we had more transparency, we would have a lot more dialogue coming back from the community. Finance. The pre-election report reminds us that the council is big business. However, there appears to be an oversight that the council needs to be moved forward and be more accountable for its actions expenditure. There will be no more hiding behind unnecessary public excluded sessions. I believe fresh ideas, accountability and transparency for the Kāpiti community. If you want the same results, keep voting for the same information and members. Thank you very much for your time.
That's the noise of the angry alpaca when they hit exactly 3 minutes. Well done. Thank you very much. Right. Janet Holborow.
Kia ora tātou. I'm Janet Holborow, and I'm seeking your support for a second term as your mayor. Thank you all for coming along tonight, and thank you for those of you who took the opportunity to talk to the candidates at the tables earlier. It's so important to be informed as you're choosing a mayor, councillors, community board members who need to navigate this district through some significant challenges. So after 3 years as mayor, I've been reflecting on what has made this council a collaborative and positive one, how we can improve and enhance how we work alongside the community over the next 3 years. I've also been reflecting on what is leadership. To me, it's about the 3 principles that also underpin our relationship with mana whenua: whanaungatanga, kotahitanga, manaakitanga. Whanaungatanga, or kinship. Alongside Deputy Mayor Lawrence Kirby, I've led a council where all elected members have worked together with mutual respect and open communication. And that didn't happen by accident. When I was first elected mayor, I sat down with every newly elected councillor and went through an innovative and inclusive governance structure which made sure that every councillor had their say and could achieve their aspirations. And the community boards have been empowered and engaged. Kotahitanga, working together. We've created opportunities for the community to get involved. Our work on Vision Kāpiti has meant that over 2,000 people have participated in creating a plan for our future. We've refreshed our partnership with mana whenua. We've established a community housing trust and created advisory groups which will underpin our work catering for our older communities and our people with disabilities. We've developed a memorandum of partnership with KYS, Kāpiti Youth Support, to ensure that we continue to support that valuable organisation. And we also have a memorandum of understanding with Ngā Manu to recognise their important role in supporting conservation and education. Manaakitanga, caring for our community and environment. This embraces all of our work, building a new library for Waikanai, reservoirs in Otaki, the new skate park at McCann Park. It also encompasses our work to enhance our natural environment, including our open spaces and waterways. Now, none of this can happen without sound financial management. We've made a plan to reduce debt, reduce staffing costs, and we're building on the $3 million of savings we found this year to bring rates rises down, so we can bring them down even further next year. Times are tough, and rates affordability will be an ongoing challenge. We need to have some hard conversations with the community about what we can and can't afford to deliver. My pledge to you is to keep rates as low as possible while continuing to invest in the services and infrastructure that will set us up for the future. Vote 1, Janet Holborow for Mayor. Thank you.
Thank you, Jen. Martin Halliday.
Thank you. Kia ora, ladies and gentlemen. I'm Martin Halliday, current Ward Councillor for Parapara-Umu, and I'm here today asking for your consideration to be the next Mayor of Kāpiti. I brought my family to the Kāpiti Coast 15 years ago, and what I often reflect on as being one of the best decisions of my life. What a fantastic place we live in, full of wonderful people working towards making Kāpiti a great place to live in, bring up the family, and generally thrive in a positive, connected community. There are a lot of great things about Kāpiti, but there are challenges. That's one of the reasons I stepped up 6 years ago to represent and work for you, my community. 35 years in hospitality industry as an entrepreneur, manager and business owner has given me strong leadership, managerial and people skills, and this has now been strengthened with 6 years full-time as Ward Councillor for Parapara-Umu. And it's a big job, and I have to say, local government is certainly different from owning your own business. It's been a lot to get my head around, and I'm certainly glad I made the decision to commit to the role full-time, as it has allowed me to achieve a good in-depth understanding of how this business works, and it is accumulated knowledge. I stand by all the decisions I've made and I'm proud to have been part of bringing the organisation, KCDC, from a place of contention and adversity to a place of positive culture, support and strong delivery. This achieved in a large part when the previous CEO moved on and being involved in the employment of our current CEO. Leadership, tone and culture comes from the top, and I've been privileged to be a part of what I see as a significant improvement in how this council operates and does business. The gateway went, capital budget trimmed, staffing capped, and a positive culture has led to substantial delivery and constructive relationships being built, which I have capitalised on for the benefit of my community. So what will be some of my priorities for the coming 3 years? Well, addressing the rates issue. Rates are our main mechanism of raising revenue, but in my opinion, we're at their limit, which I said last election campaign, but I've seemed to have been in a minority. My stand is to bring rates back to the previous threshold of 5% of the average household income, which we went past in the last long-term plan, and to explore and instigate additional revenue streams. Housing. As chair of the Social Sustainability Committee, I've been a champion in this space. Since the housing needs assessment completed last term, social housing is now being built in Kāpiti. We now need to ensure it's our people that go into them. A Kāpiti Independent Housing Trust is now in place and onto its first project in Otaki, supplying 22 new affordable houses, and that is just the start. I also wish to see Kāpiti's older person housing expanded in that trust and have pushed for the current review happening in the regulatory space. Strong foundations to build over the next 3 years. I look forward to the questions and hope the answers will help you in your decision process. Thank you very much.
Thank you, Martin. And finally, Liz Coe.
The lucky last. Good evening, everyone. I've lived in Kāpiti for 25 years and I really love living here, as I'm sure you do too. I'm standing for Mayor because I believe Kāpiti needs stronger leadership and better financial management than it's had in the past. This is my third career. I spent 20 years in general management with companies such as Development Finance Corporation, MCO, Databank and Ernst & Young. My last job was as a general manager for ESR down in Pororua, where I had around 120 staff. I have a master's degree in economics. I'm a chartered accountant, chartered director and certified financial planner. I moved to Kāpiti 25 years ago and set up my financial planning business, and I've seen actually a number of former clients here this evening, which is really nice. During that time, I helped hundreds of retirees manage their retirement finances. And I'm now one of New Zealand's leading experts on retirement planning. So I understand the issues that retirees face. It's not easy being retired in today's environment. I understand that rates affordability is a big issue, not just here, but around New Zealand. But we can't just look at rates affordability on its own. We also have to bring our debt down. We've invested heavily in our water infrastructure, which is great. But now council's debt is twice as high as for other councils of a similar size. Every ratepayer is paying around $450 a year in interest on that debt, and that will likely increase. But we also need to maintain, replace and expand our core infrastructure, or we'll end up like Wellington with pipes blowing up all over the place, and we sure don't want that. So somehow we've got to find the right balance between these three issues: rates affordability, debt reduction, and the future financial sustainability of our core infrastructure. That's no easy task. We have an affordability measure in council, which is average rates as a percentage of median household income. And for some time that was 5%, for the last LTP it was increased to 7%. We can revisit that next year when we do the next long-term plan, and we're separating out our Three Waters business. That means going back to basics with our long-term plan. And I'd like to see some extensive consultation with our community over that long-term plan. I want to make a clear distinction between those services which are core and those which are important but not core. And I believe there's opportunities to bring in revenue from other sources to help fund the important but not core activities. And we've started this process already with the Housing Trust and the Economic Development Trust, which are able to tap into revenue from government, charitable organisations, philanthropists and private investors to supplement any contribution from ratepayers. I really look forward to leading council and working with you to find solutions that are both affordable for ratepayers and sustainable for council. It's a terrible noise.
It stopped.
I'm sorry about that. Have another 10 seconds on me. Or not,
right.
as the case may be. I do apologise. I apologise, Liz. Thank you so much. I'll tell you the story about the alpaca sound effect. After we've finished the debate. What we'll do now is we'll move from our 3-minute prepared speeches into a series of questions. Now, the candidates have all had these in advance, so they've had a chance to think about them, because I don't think there's anything worse than being really forced to think deeply about hard things without having the chance to do a bit of prep. So you should expect good things out of this next batch of questions. They'll be rotating in that set order. And the first question we're going to ask will start off with you, Dean, and each of the candidates will answer this one in turn. So I have, as I'm sure you have, observed widespread concern right across Aotearoa New Zealand about the level of rates and their affordability. So what are your thoughts on that, particularly as it relates to Kāpiti? And if you are Mayor, what would you be doing about it? 2 minutes, your time starts now.
There's a lot involved in the rates, and it's certainly something that can't be covered off in 2 minutes. But I have got a little bit of a note with it, and there's some other questions along the way that we're going to be covering to do with this subject as well. But essentially, rates have gone up 35% over the last 3 years, and are set to go up on the long-term plan 115% from 2024 to 2034. And every year from now, it's set to go up 7% per year, which compounded gives you the picture of a 115% rate increase. So essentially the rate intake 3 years ago was around $70 million. That has now gone up to 100 million or thereabouts. This year, with projected increases, this intake is going to go up to $213 million over the long-term plan. You as a ratepayer are going to have to find somewhere in the vicinity of another $4,000 per year for each household. I actually find it quite incomprehensible that the current sitting council has not looked into reduce the rate increases even further, because we have a reduction plan so that there is more money in your bank account, and the council still functions as it is, but there is less frivolous spending and more accountability for your money. And I will cover some of that off over the questions that will be coming. Thank you.
Thank you. If Mayor, regarding rates, Kim, you're next up. What are your thoughts on rates affordability? And if Mayor, what would you be doing about it?
Some of this is covered off in the next question, but capping of rates at 5% of medium income is disproportionate to those that are on fixed income. Plus, the affordability is actually a very subjective term. The rating system needs to be reviewed. I propose that we look at how rates are applied to different services. For an example, a registered retirement village where the majority of the residents are on fixed incomes, they would remain unchanged. Housing units that deliver services to the community, such as the Lighthouse and Mary's Guest House, that may be reviewed and possibly even decrease. However, one of the major concerns is the housing developments that are managed by a body corporate, where the number of rating units is actually reduced and it is not reflected upon the number of houses in that development. We would look at applying the rating unit on a per dwelling basis, the same as the majority in this room. The other issue being some of these developments, particularly the newer ones, have been given an exemption for stormwater retention. Currently, Kāpiti's policy is 10,000 litres per dwelling per dwelling. Developments typically over 6 houses are able to apply for exemptions. And one example would be the new Odessa development on Mazengarb Road. It's 41 units, 410,000 litres should be stored there. They've got an exemption for 20,000. That means their outside taps and their toilets are now flushed with fresh water. Thank you very much.
Thank you. I wish my children were here so they could reset this wretched thing. I blame them for it in the first place. No, I don't think there's anyone here. No, never mind. Carry on. Right. Next up, thank you. What are your thoughts on rates affordability? And if Mayor, what would you be doing about it? Janet.
Thank you for the question. As I've been Mayor, I will say what we have been doing about it as well. So 2 years ago in the long-term plan, we saw unprecedented rates rises across the country. That's when we saw our 17%, which was our big uplift. I've been an elected member for 18 years, and I've never seen anything anywhere near that. And that was largely because of the cancellation of the Three Waters program. Now, central government then went on with a narrative that councils are somehow indulging in frivolous spending. It's just not true. In the subsequent annual plan, this was what I was touching on in my introduction, we found $3 million of savings so that we could keep to our long-term plan projection. That's still too high, but I'll give you a few examples to just try and communicate how difficult it is to find these savings. So we cut our head staff count by 15 positions, saving $1.45 million. Reduced roading work that is no longer subsidised, saving $260,000. Reduced and deferred some grant funding, saving $540,000. Cut costs in our office facilities, saving $65,000, and revised work programs and operational efficiency, saving $380,000. That added up to about $3.1 million. Now, I just did a quick calculation last night to work out how much that would be per property, and that's $135 per property. Now, that's a useful amount, but it's not a significant chunk of rates. So I hope that communicates how difficult it is to find these savings. But we need to go out in the next annual plan, long-term plan, have the tough conversations, really look at our spending so that we can bring that rates rise down for the next annual plan. Thank you.
Thank you, Janet. Martin, rates, and if Mayor, what would you be doing about their current levels?
Okay. There's a couple of sides to this question, in my opinion. We need to get rates back in line with our previous self-imposed ceiling of 5% of the average household income, which I did mention in my opening speech. We went past that figure in the last long-term plan. Now, the reason that that's important is it's not capping, it's a ceiling. It's a self-imposed ceiling, and it creates, my apologies, I've just lost my train of thought, so I'm going to go back to my notes. We then need to stabilise the position, look at the pot of money we have, and then work towards what is our budget. That budgeted figure would then be subject to increase through growth, for example, 500 new rateable units coming online during the financial year. Inflation can be factored in, but that also has to align with the average rates figure. A piece of work needs to be done around what is fair and reasonable as a rates figure and how that relates to infrastructure delivery and community building. Then prioritising comes in, and that goes hand in hand with consultation, talking to you guys, tied to forward planning and the balance of what the community needs versus what it wants. Alongside that, council needs to run a tight ship. KCDC has one of the lowest operating costs per capita in the country, big tick. And we need to look at maximising central government grant funding opportunities. We currently have $110 million in the pipeline at the moment, and we're at phase 2. $7 million for an affordable housing project in Otaki has already come in, and $30 million for Otaki infrastructure are examples of what already has come in during this term. Look to develop additional income streams, maybe via solar or a dam, or commercialising solutions for turning waste streams into income-generating opportunities. Have a plan around economic development for tourism and business attraction, which we are doing. There is no quick fix here, but I'm proud to have worked with the council building strong foundations in health, housing, economic development and infrastructure delivery. And that's why I'm asking for your consideration to be Kāpiti's next mayor, to work this business at the next level and to push. Thank you.
Liz.
Okay, look, I think we do need to agree what an affordable rate is. And we have had a measure, which we've talked about already this evening, which is average rates as a percentage of median household income. And traditionally that's been set at around 5%. It increased to 7% for the last long-term plan. That's clearly too high because people are experiencing quite a lot of pain with that. So we need to work out what is an acceptable figure. I'm not a fan of rates capping. It doesn't work. We've seen that in Australia where it's been implemented for the last 10 years and caused major problems in terms of increased debt from by councils and degrading infrastructure. So we need to agree what's an appropriate percentage. We also need to distinguish between core activities and activities which are important but not core. And that needs to be a consultation process with the community. And we have dilemmas because some of the things that we cut, people might actually really, really want. So we need to give you options. I mean, we've talked tonight about KYS funding. You know, some people are saying, why don't we cut all council grants? Why would we be giving away ratepayer money to the community? Well, it's to support things like KYS, which are really integral to our community. So we need to have those conversations with you about what's really important to you. How important is the environment to you? Because we do give money in that area as well. What are the priorities for you? And we have pretty much completed the Vision Kāpiti project, which was aimed at doing just that, to work out what sort of community you want and what council's role is in that. And I'd like to do more in that area to just give people options around, if you want your rates to go up by 5%, here's what we need to do. If you want your rates to go up by 3%, you're going to have to give up some of these things in order to achieve that. So there needs to be some real options about where we pitch the rates and what that means in terms of our service levels to you. Because there's no such thing as a free lunch, right?
Thanks, Liz.
Thank you.
That was that extra 10 seconds the alpaca robbed her of before. No problem. Rob.
Kia ora. I think one thing we've got to be clear about is this is the equal average age, the oldest equal average age area in New Zealand. So what that means is that we have a significantly higher number of people who are on fixed incomes than almost anywhere else in New Zealand. So when we set a rates increase at 17% or over 30% over 3 years, there are families who can't increase their income because they're retired and on fixed incomes. And that's not to say that there are young families out there who are really, really struggling. So our councillors and council need to really acknowledge that rates rises are out of control. I'm not suggesting that we need to slash and burn, but we need to have some really, really sensible planning. And if I can quote Liz, the last LTP was not a good process. We didn't do the work on cost cutting. So the long-term plan is the engine room for ideas, good ideas both and bad ideas in council. That is when you work out what resources you're going to put into the community, how much money you've got, what the income is, what the expenditure is, what the staff resources are. And you heard me tell a story earlier where clearly, even though it was in that long-term plan, the council got it wrong and failed to deliver. We actually need to go out and consult really honestly with the community about what we can and can't afford. I've often heard the Mayor say, you know, I ask people whether they want us to stop mowing the berms. Well, that's the wrong question. Of course, everyone's going to say, no, we don't want you to stop. We have to give people some real questions and real consultation so that they're able to say, well, this is the area of priority. And very much echoing the wise words of Liz, we need to find out what the community wants to pay for, what our priorities are, and then what we can afford, and then come back and consult with the community. But that takes real organisation, and I think I'm up for it.
Thank you. The second question that I wrote pushes harder into this question of rates, because as a ratepayer, I am particularly interested in the level of rates. If rates are to come down, projected rises are to decrease, there either has to be more money coming in, less money going out, or some other solution. And I'm just going to throw something in here, candidates, which occurred to me as I was listening to you before. And that doesn't mean outsourcing the cost of water to another authority and having your rates rise or your rates come down that way, right? So we're talking about same coming down, not outsourcing, and two separate bills. Again, if you were elected mayor and there had to be less money going out, what would you personally choose to reduce spending on? Or do you have another concrete idea to bring money into the budget? Kim, we'll start with you. So this I really want. Give me the Dewey.
Okay. My ultimate goal would be to operate KCDC as a big business, one that is accountable to its investors, ratepayers, one that is also accountable to its stakeholders, being its residents, and leading towards cash flow positive. Based on that view, I have proposed a waste management platform which has many operational plants throughout Asia and Europe. Further due diligence may be required, as I have only investigated this myself. There are several options available. However, one that processes 100 tonnes of waste per day would provide 5 megawatts of electricity. It's enough to power the entire Kāpiti district. Based on the current price or the pricing of electricity in February 2025, that would pay the Kāpiti Council $18 million per annum for the return of its investment. Kāpiti does not have 100 tonnes of waste generated currently, so there is ample room for growth. Short term, we could import waste from adjoining councils, such as Paura or Harawhenua. If we targeted their bio-waste, which is preferential, Kāpiti currently pays $330 per tonne to dispose of bio-waste. Even if we did it for the adjoining councils at $200 a tonne, those numbers have not been included in my calculations. One thing that needs to be asked by any of the other candidates here, how many other candidates can deliver $18 million year on year of cost savings? Thank you.
Thank you. Janet, if you had to cut something, what would it be? Or if you had to bring more money in, where would it come from?
Just before I answer, are we getting a warning bell with these questions?
Yes,
or-
there was one.
Yes,
You're
sorry,
getting one, I beg your pardon.
I
You're
want
getting
my
a,
30 seconds back from my first question.
you're getting a warning bell at 90 seconds, so 1 minute 30. You'll get one warning bell, and
Yeah, got that.
I've
Thank
turned
you.
off the alpaca, so you won't hear them anymore.
This is a really good question, because one of our problems in Kāpiti is that we rely too heavily on residential rates. We don't have an airport, we don't have other sources of income, we don't have a big industrial park, we don't have big business here. And one of the things we need to do as a community, if we really want to mature and grow, is change that by attracting investment, by growing our local economy, by making sure in the long term that we're getting revenue from sources that aren't just based on the value of people's homes. That's not an adequate way to fund the things that we need to do to prepare us for the future. One of the other ways that we can attract some funding is by setting up trusts, like the housing trust that we've set up, that are able to access sources of revenue that we're not able to access. We need to work in partnership with the community. I'll draw this facility here as an example. We had some millions of dollars set aside in our long-term plan some years in the future to build a performing arts centre somewhere near where the library is up in Paraparaumu. And Kāpiti College approached us and said, if you put, say, $1.6 million into our project, we can make it bigger so that it's useful for the whole community. And we'll raise the rest of the funds and build the facility. And then we drew up a partnership agreement between the college, the Ministry of Education and the council, which guarantees that the community can have access to this facility 300 days of the year. So we ended up with something that council would otherwise have had to spend about $10 or $12 million on for 1.68 million by working in partnership with the community. And it's that kind of thing, that kind of creative thinking that's going to enable us to reduce rates, because they can't carry on as they are. So we need to build our economy, we need to work in partnership with our community, and we need to attract external funding.
Thank you.
Thanks.
Martin, one thing you'd cut or one concrete thing you'd put in the pot?
Look, the question about cutting, I think is really the wrong way to approach this. Council's not in the business of making money. It's in the business of creating, or providing infrastructure and building communities. And we rate for that. And as Janet pointed out, one of the hindrances in that space is we don't have other forms of income. Now, we go through a consultative process called the long-term plan. And in that, we plan what our spending is going to be for the future. We need to ensure that, that we work to those plans. That's what they're there for. In relation to how that comes with our rates, in my opinion, we are maxed out on rates. You know, we can't just keep pushing that button. Government pushed infrastructure onto local government in the 80s, and they've gradually stepped away from funding it, and they keep putting it on local government to rate. That's not fair. We need to draw a line in the sand, and I do believe that is that 5% average household income figure. And then we need to lobby central government for a solution here. Whether it be GST, whether it be taxation, there needs to be a different solution than the one that we have. As Janet's pointed out, we are working, and I think have built very good, strong foundations over the last triennium with regards to economic development, our Affordable Housing Trust. These organisations sit independently outside of council and can access funding that we currently can't. The other thing is we need to be looking at central government with regards to, you're talking about other pots of money. I mentioned before, $110 million is in the pipeline at the moment for grant applications that we have in with central government. $30 million from the Regional Infrastructure Fund and $80 million from the Regional Economic Development Fund. That is where we can get substantial benefits with regards to income coming in from government, which takes the burden off the ratepayer. And we need to work with developing other revenue streams. One I think that is wide open is looking at the waste minimalisation space, looking at rather than as a disposable, as a potential asset, as a potential revenue income stream. I'm on the Regional Waste Committee, and there's ample, big chunks of funding available to set up those sorts of opportunities, if you like.
Lovely. Where there's muck, there's money. Thank you very much. Liz, what would you cut or what would you bring in?
Well, I think there's some efficiencies that we can gain, and I'm particularly interested in looking at our procurement processes, and we're just in the throes of putting in place a really good procurement system. Council buys in millions of dollars worth of services from other parties every year, and I believe we need to look hard at that and see what we can squeeze out of that process to see if we can drive down process or buy in things more cheaply. There's maybe some business process re-engineering we can do, particularly in our regulatory sector, because regulatory is a big part of our outgoings for council. We obviously need to reduce our interest costs. You know, we pay, I think currently something like $12 million a year in interest, and that's rising. So that means we've got to reduce debt, as I keep going on about. And so in order to reduce debt, there's only two ways you can do it. One is to review your capital expenditure program going forward, so you're not adding to the debt. And the second is to create a surplus between revenue and costs, so that surplus can be applied to debt reduction. So obviously, as well as cost efficiencies, we need to bring in extra money to help create that surplus. And we've talked about the trust, the housing trust, and the economic development trust that have been set up. I think there's other partnerships we can get into with the community as well to help reduce the load on council and work with those other partners to ease the funding gaps that we have, particularly in for our community grants and so on. So look, I think there's a lot of opportunities. We just have to really analyse them and do something about them. Get into action to create that surplus so we can pay down debt Yeah, look, I'm really optimistic about things that can be done to keep rates under control.
Thank you, Liz. Rob, what would you cut or what would you bring in?
It's hard when you go last because everyone's said everything. So I'll note some of the things I agree with and disagree with.
And I think Dean's going to have a really rotten time.
Because McCann will have already done it. So the other sources of income, absolutely. We do need to look for other sources of income, but so's every other council. And guess what? Government are pretty stingy on handing out money at the moment. So we've got to be really realistic about the ideas. Now, I know the Mayor talked about attracting investment, but it's a great sounding phrase, but there's absolutely nothing behind that. There's no concrete foundations on which to attract the investment. You can say it, it just doesn't make it come true. Now, the trust, the housing portfolio, I have done a whole lot of work on that because when I was on council, I had the housing portfolio, and there was a real reason for introducing that because we've got 118 senior homes, and the government pays us less for the subsidy for those than if it were in an independent trust. So there are real reasons to make that happen because it would be good for our community and cost less for those people living in them. But in terms of the Economic Development Agency and setting up an outside group, effectively that group have voted themselves on into paid positions. And we're talking about a $10.3 million fund over 10 years. That really doesn't seem to have the kind of strategic direction and hard KPIs that I think that we need. So we're going to be very careful about these ideas of there's going to be lots of spare money. I think it's going to be much, much harder to get than some of these candidates are saying. We actually have to look long and hard at our long-term plan, do better planning, cut where we can, and not make decisions like pay the CE an extra 50K after his first year, because when you go back to the staff and say, find savings, and that's how you've led with your front foot, they're really going to look at you like you're slightly crazy.
Thank you. And last in this round, Dean.
Well, it's all covered. I can't say any more, can I?
Thank you so much. And
I'll have another go.
No.
I'll let you have this one.
Yeah. All right. Okay, so first of all, we've got to identify what the cost drivers are. We've had staffing increasing 14 million from 2022 to 2025, so that's over the last 3 years, $14 million. Went from 27.4 million to 41.1 million. That's nearly a 50% increase. Full-time employers increased by 15% over the last 3 years. The cost per full-time employer increased by 31% over that 3 years. The cost drivers on the long-term plan are staffing up 10 million, insurance up 21 million to 7.7 million, or sorry, 2.1 million to 7.7 million, and depreciation up to 28.7 million. And they make up 86% of the cost increases within council. So, first of all, let's have a look at grants. Grants have gone from 800,000 to 2.1 million. That's a 150% increase in 3 years. We could knock $1 million off that, and there's 1% saving right there. That would come off the 7% that you've paid now. Economic development paid by ratepayers at 59,000 per week, or 3.1 million per year. That's 31 million over the long-term plan. We reduce that by $2 million per year, there's another 2% off your rates. I've just reduced it from 7% down to 4%. With those two things, doesn't alter a lot. Internal spending needs to be taken a look at with the microscope, and non-core spending. If we took 50 million from the increased capital expenditure of 800 million, that means 50 million at 5% interest would be a reduction of 2.5% reduced off the rates. That's a 5.5% reduction on rates per year, right there off the 7% of the long-term plan. Thank you.
Thank you. Right, we'll move from numbers. We've done rates.
Thank God.
Thank God. Solved? Do we all feel happy we've done rates to death?
Yes.
Thank you for the gentleman in the back. We're now going to discuss the sound of one hand clapping. That's 2 hands, at least. Because collaboration, unless you've got votes, you get nothing done. So as mayor, if you're elected mayor, this one is about your governance style. Describe your leadership style and how you work with people who don't agree with you. Janet, you get to go first.
I'll probably make my answer quite short on this one because I talk quite a lot of... Shall I say it again? I'll probably make my answer quite short on this one because I talked quite a lot about this during my introduction. But, you know, it's not an easy task. I think I've seen 5 councils before I became mayor, and I saw what can happen when a council isn't working well together and how hard it is to drive the organisation forward. So this is actually a crucial part of being mayor. You're responsible for bringing together a diverse group of people, and you don't have like a political party to support you or common policies that you all come in on. You just all come in, you sit at the table, and you somehow have to make it work. And I don't know if you've counted them all up, but there are 31 elected members in Kāpiti, not 11, because there's also 5 community boards. And if you can harness the power of all of those people and really give them all mana and encouragement, you can achieve so much together. It's important to realise that the mayor is only one vote at the table. So you might see mayoral candidates coming in with a particular angle or a particular opinion or a particular path they want to follow. But if they can't bring those other councillors behind them and together and working on a common pathway to the future, then you're not going to achieve what you want to achieve. Respect is absolutely bottom line. Respecting each other, respecting public speakers who come into the table, respecting each other's opinions. And I am a person who knows the difference between opinion and fact. So I don't find it really hard when people don't agree with me, because they actually might be right, and I'm willing to listen to them. And I feel really fortunate that I've had 11 people sitting around the table who all have that attitude, who listen to each other, who listen to each other's points of view, and are willing to change their points of view if they hear a good argument to the contrary, and that's healthy. So we really need to have respect, we need to be working well together, and I have a proven ability to bring people together to do just that.
Thank you, Janet. I'm going to read the question again because it was such a good question. I was so proud of it when I wrote it. Martin, describe your leadership style and how you work with people who don't agree with you.
Rightio. Look, I have an inclusive leadership style, but having been self-employed, I appreciate that the buck stops with the person at the top. I like to support those that work with me so that they can be the best that they can be, allowing for great outcomes for the organisation or business you're involved in. I'm hands-on and I lead by example. I like to know what's going on everywhere, so I'm well informed, but not too overbearing. But that's to give respect to the work being done by the organisation, but it also helps to keep an eye out for the opportunities that avail themselves to you, when you are lobbying or advocating as well. I'm upfront and will make the decision when it needs to be made and then stand by it, as I've done as the ward councillor for Paraparaumu for the last 6 years. 35 years in business, both managing businesses and owning my own. One of my key measures of success has been low staff turnover, and in hospitality, that can be a very challenging measure, but one I've been proud to achieve. You need to know the business, which I have committed the last 6 years full-time in doing. People that don't agree with me, look, just talk, listen, are the words I've written down here. You need to communicate. Hey, look, we're in local government, the beauty of which is that you have 10 people making decisions. That's democracy. And you need a majority to get things done. And you need to factor in community opinion. It's all part of the equation. Having space for open, free and frank discussion, in my opinion, at the council table is critical. You need to chew over the issues. There's a saying, have an open mind, not an empty one. I've gone into meetings thinking one way, and then the debate has thrown up other options and other ways of thinking, and I've changed my mind. I will look at an issue from all sorts of different angles. I'll put myself in different positions. I'll attend meetings that perhaps I'm uncomfortable being at, but to me, that's important. It's not about what I think. Obviously, there's an element to that. What's important is getting a feeling for what's going on in the community and making a balanced decision.
Thank you. You're starting to warm up, you're clapping, I do like that. The sugar rush is finally kicking in from the candy floss. Liz,
Yes.
your leadership style and how you work with people who don't agree with you.
Look, my leadership style is based on shared vision. You know, we have to be working towards the same goals for our community. And I have to say that over this last triennium, we've had a lot of that shared vision and some really committed people around the table, and that's been great. But I think, you know, diversity of views is important. I would hate to think we ever got to the stage of block voting in council. To me, that would be just awful. We need diversity. It's not up to the mayor to make the decisions. The mayor is the leader. As a leader, you're maybe, you know, shifting things in a certain direction, but you're not making the final decisions. You're kind of guiding people towards making really good decisions. And I think really it's the quality of debate at the council table that's really important. That's the key driver of good decision making. We need good, solid, robust debate based on facts, and my style is very much one of using logic and objectivity as a basis for decision making, combined with the consideration of the consequences for the community at large of the decisions that we make. And decisions should not be made on pet loves or pet hates or ideology. You know, that's how, if we don't adhere to these basic principles that I've outlined, I think we're in danger of making really poor decisions. So that's my job, is to make sure we're being really objective, sticking to the facts, very logical, but considering the consequences for our community of the choices that we make. And, and that's in the context of that shared vision. I think if we do that, then we can't go too far wrong. The democratic process should work just fine.
Thank you. I'm going to see if I can just twist this knob a little bit. Rob, how would you work with people who don't agree with you?
Let me tell you a little story about last council. So I was given the housing portfolio. Our council had had a role in housing in 1967 through to 1984, Roger Douglas's years, and we'd built 118 houses and then got out of it. And no one thought that our community had a role to do anything in that space. But the Mayor Guru gave me that role, and I set about trying to make sure that our councillors could understand what it's like to live in other people's shoes. Because that's what, as a leader, you need to do, is be able to recognise that you don't represent, I'm pale, male and getting old a bit, I don't represent everybody in the community. You've got to be able to put yourself in other people's shoes. So over that period of time, we brought all the councillors together so that they understood that there was a huge need, a huge housing need in our community. And we did a needs assessment. We came up with an action plan, a housing plan. We went out to the community and we sold it to them, and we got buy-in from everyone. That included people who just don't think it's role of even government to play social housing. And now this current council has put in place the work that we were doing to put in place a housing trust. So if that gives you any idea of how one person can bring everyone together, get people on side and listen. Because one of the things we did with the communications in that particular project was no spin. Make sure that we put the pros and cons out to the community and then had an honest discussion about it. And that's what I do with leadership, is making sure that you are listening to people, even when you don't agree with them, because they've usually got a good idea. And I'm still married, so I probably understand that.
Dean, how about you? I have got the order right, haven't I? Yeah. Dean, what about you? People, when they don't agree with you, how do you work with them?
Yeah,
As a divorcee, I'm just putting it out there.
I know the feeling. Hey, look, there's always three sides to every story. His side, her side, and in the middle is the truth. And that goes with the population, communities, and people that want something. There'll always be someone that wants something, and there'll always be people that don't want something. And in between that, you've got to find an equal balance. And I think one of the things within council is, first and foremost, our job is to listen to the community and get a true understanding of what the community wants. And so that's kind of my style, and it sort of leads me into when I used to rep around the country and with my sales import company, where I would visit retailers right around the country, and all operating similar stores, but all with different demographics and wanting different product. So it was trying to meet a balance, and that same approach is in local communities as well. So what Paikakariki wants might not necessarily be what Otaki wants. So it's a matter of finding the balance and listening. But one of the things that I think everyone could be assured of is that my approach is for community first, and what the community wants as opposed to what the institution wants. One of our pillars is democracy over bureaucracy. And so we want to have a more inclusive council, a more listening council that is open on the hours that suit the community, not during working hours when no one can visit. So there's a lot of approaches. I'm a newbie to council. You've got members here that have already done this job and are now pitching to you what they would do differently. I know what I would like to do for the community should I be elected, and that's to be inclusive and to find out what the community and convey that through the voting process within council. That's my approach.
Thank you. Kim, how do you work with people who don't agree with you?
Through my career, conflict resolution and compliance has played a major role. Security can be very intrusive, and it is also disruptive at the same time. I listen to people's objective input and hear out their parties, the different parties, and form a mutual respect for both parties, so that the parties have to actually negotiate themselves how they're going to resolve the issues. That will include putting information out to the community so that we can get a majority consensus on how we can move forward. I have a very collaborative approach and ensure that full transparency and disclosure from all parties and decisions are made in the interest of the community. My view is a long-term plan delivers far better results than a short-term vision. My management style is to set tasks and milestones. People need to be accountable for their actions. I consider myself as fair but not forgiving when the tasks have not been achieved in a cost-effective, timely manner. I do hold people to account if they continue to fail on their previous experiences. Repeating the same mistakes, just not tolerated. Thank you.
Thank you. So I'm just going to shuffle the questions, candidates, so that I've got a bit of flow going. Yeah. Your speaking order's still the same, but I'm going to shuffle because I think this next question picks up on a couple of topics that you've raised, and I'd really like to get an understanding of this. So we're going to talk not about your governance style. I must admit, I thought the answer to that question was going to be, if they don't agree with me, we have the vote and I get over it, we move on to the next thing. I was wrong. I'll be interested in this one. This one's called Level of Detail for Effective Governance, and this gets into the interface between management and governance. And Martin, you're going to get this one first. This is question 14 in your pack.
Yeah, you threw me out a bit with that one.
Sorry.
Can you repeat the question?
I haven't asked it yet. It's like this. Do you believe the current level of detail or scrutiny of council activities by elected members is set at the right level for effective governance? Discuss.
Oh, nice, easy question. Love
No
it.
pressure.
Set at the right level for the current governance. Look, council's tough. You know, anyone says it's easy, I'm sorry. It's not an easy gig at all. And we're legislated to the bootstraps. There's a lot of defined and scripted pathways that we have to adhere to. And it becomes very, very challenging with regards to the rights or wrongs in our decision-making process, as was shown in PC2. But we plan, and we're legislated to plan, and we are audited. We've heard comment about different groups looking at the long-term plan. This here has just been recently released. This is our annual report. It's an audited report. And I do suggest you read it because it's excellent reading and shows the delivery that has occurred by this council over the last 3 years. Things, in my opinion, we turned a corner. The question around good governance decisions, and do we have the dial set to the right limit? Will we ever have? And that's the beauty of local government. It's a democratic process. You have 11 people around that table with varying skills, varying levels of understanding, and various levels of time commitment. That all comes together in the democratic process, and we make decisions based on the information that's put in front of us and the homework that we do as well, and we try to do the best job that we can. It's up to you every 3 years to decide then whether we're doing a good job, which is why you're here. So I think all the rules and everything's in place. I think this council is doing a very, very good job. We've got a bit of an issue on rates, got to bring that back down to make that a little bit more reasonable. But our CEO, our management team, are doing great because we have empowered them, and that wasn't the case last triennium. People are doing the jobs that we've employed them to do. Councillors are able to communicate effectively with the senior leadership team, and that's ensuring and helping with effective delivery. I hope that was somewhat of an answer.
Thank you. I'm never using this phone again. I'm going to restate the question. I want you to think about, Liz, you're coming up next. I want you to think, you're a chartered member of the Institute of Directors.
Yes.
This is this management governance question, and this is about the level of information that you're getting. Are you getting the information you need to make the decisions? Are you scrutinising the staff activities adequately as you're doing your long-term plan setting? That's the thrust of the question. Discuss.
Look, there is a very clear distinction between governance and management. Council is a governance body, not a management body. So our route through to the detail of the organisation is via the Chief Executive. And that's the bit that I, in particular, have put a bit of emphasis on over this last triennium, is working with the Chief Executive to set the priorities for his performance and hence the organisation's performance over the triennium. That's our route through. So we have put together a very comprehensive process for setting the CEO's objectives, monitoring his performance and linking that to his remuneration. That's how we get effective control of the detail of the organisation without actually delving into the detail ourselves, because that's not our role. Our role is to set strategic direction and to make sure we are compliant with all our regulatory responsibilities. It's to not to look at how much we spend on cleaning the office floors or something like that. You know, we need to be high level and strategic and set the direction for council. So to me, that's we do get to obviously sign off on the annual plan and the long-term plan, and that has a certain level of detail in it, which we do have clearly some say over, and that's an appropriate level of detail. So I think we actually have the balance about right as it sits now. Thank you.
Thanks, Liz. Rob, what do you think?
I'm glad you asked that question. The level of detail, I'll tell you one thing that happens in government is when you've got something to hide, they put out 100 pages. And somewhere in that 100 pages, there's a piece of information that they're hoping that you don't read. Now, in my time in council, there were some reports that were extensively long and there were some that were very, very short. And it's really hard to have a broad generalisation of whether there was enough information all the time. I think one of the biggest problems was sometimes the information came to councillors very late in the process. So you were reading hundreds of pages of reports and then trying to understand it before a vote the following week. One thing I will disagree with Liz in the strategic direction is that it really is councillors' job to understand the reporting of when council says they've done something or they've done something really well. That is the time when sometimes organisations are very good at putting on rose-tinted glasses and saying we've done something well when in actual fact we haven't. The other thing that I think of note is that the current mayor got rid of the portfolio system. To me, I thought that meant that councillors had a smaller area where they could be experts and sometimes challenge the council staff and the organisation and be able to support their other colleagues. That's something that's really lacking when everybody has a thin veneer of information and knowledge, as opposed to having a little area of expertise as well as that thin area of knowledge. And I think that was really good for our community, and it was good governance, and it meant that sometimes we had better follow-through and better results.
Thank you. Dean, do you think the current level of... I think I know the answer to this. Do you think the current level of detail or scrutiny of council activities by elected members is set at the right level for effective governance discuss?
Well, my answer to that is no. And I'll tell you why, is because part of the reason was there was a change in the Local Government Act in 2019, and it basically set the council structure into what they call a body corporate and pituitary. So you've got the elected members that are there to just sign stuff off, and the officials making all the policy and setting the guidance. One of the things that also happens is that, as a couple have alluded to, is that they'll provide a whole vast document that are set to, for a councillor to read over maybe 5 or 6 days or so and going to be voting on it the following week. They don't have enough time to digest it, and Plan Change 2 is a classic example of that, with the housing that is set to just go completely array throughout the district. Also, you have an issue with councillors being able to talk to some of the executive team, and I know that the chief executive will control that, and in some cases the elected members are not allowed to, and in fact they have to do an official information request to get the information from their own council.
You're talking about Wellington?
No, I'm talking about what's happened here in Kāpiti Coast, because I've had this discussion with others in council. So I think there needs to be some work done on that, and some work done on the transparency, and even to the degree of talking to government to get some of the changes overturned that were implemented through the Local Act of 2019.
Thank you. Kim, do you believe the current level of detail or scrutiny of council activities by elected members is set at the right level for effective governance? Discuss.
No, but like Dean, we're on the outside. I do not believe that unelected members or paid members of council should be involved in decision making. We have elected ward councillors with feedback from communities through the boards. They should be making the decisions. The governance or CEO executive team should be there to carry out our tasks that are put forward from the community. This is transparency and utilises the democratic process of those people that have put us into the office. Unelected members provide feedback and reports for those decisions to be made from the community. I understand that everyone may not agree, however, you need the opportunity be heard. The majority of the consensus and understanding of these decisions and how they were derived is very important for the community to understand. It gets back to transparency. In my opinion, if we had a lot more openness and transparency, the decisions would be made in a more timely, efficient manner, and then it is up to the governance executive team to implement those decisions, once again, in a cost-effective manner. Thank you.
Thank you. Janet, do you believe the current level of detail or scrutiny of council activities by elected members is set at the right level for effective governance? Discuss.
Well, I'll answer yes first. I really do. But it's a really interesting question because it is really hard to draw the line between good, thorough governance and getting into the weeds and getting into the operational stuff. And I think the current council, or the council over the last 3 years, has got it about right. And there's a few ways that that's happened. The first thing is that there's a one-team approach, which was instigated by the Chief Executive. I don't know if any of you know, but I had the fortunate experience of starting on the first day as the Chief Executive, which is really unusual. Usually one of you's there and the other one has to join in. So we were able to set up this one-team approach, which means that we have a really good dialogue between staff and elected members. We also have workshops where we deep dive into different areas of the organisation. At the beginning, I talked about an innovative and inclusive governance structure, and that's where we had wellbeing committees, climate and environment, social wellbeing, where we had updates and deep dives into issues that were happening around council, and that's happening in a public meeting and it's transparent. I deliberately didn't have portfolios in this term because I read the review of the Wellington City Council when they were going through some really sticky difficulties, as they are wont to do. And one of the recommendations was not to have portfolios because each elected member should have a good oversight over what's going on across the organisation. The other thing I saw happening with portfolios was councillors doing particular pieces of work and other councillors not having oversight over that, which is not really the scrutiny that we require as elected members. I'd also like to mention here quickly community boards. Community boards have a lot of scrutiny and oversight over what happens in their local areas and have updates and information flowing through them so that they can have a local lens on local issues. So yes, I do believe we have that interface set at pretty much the right level.
Thank you, Jenna. Those were great answers, weren't they? They've thought about this stuff really hard. You know, these are ordinary people standing to make their community a better place. It's impressive, the whole lot of you. Thank you, and thank you for clapping the moderator too. Points to that person. Liz, you're getting this one first. This is question 6.
Which is?
Our point of difference. Is Kāpiti clearly positioning itself strategically? If so, what do you think our strategic focus is as a district? And if not, what do you think it should be?
I think we've got a lot of potential in this area to really give our economy a turbo boost. Kāpiti is, as we know, a great place to live and work. We have our mountains to sea lifestyle, which is attractive to young families, but also those who are wanting an active retirement. And We've got improved rail and road connections coming up over the next 4 years. We've got electric trains going through to Palmerston North. We've got the Otaki to Levin Expressway. So we're going to be highly accessible to people from the lower North Island. And we have a number of unique tourist and business attractions, including our beloved Kāpiti Island, Ngā Nature Reserve in Maryland. We've got great tracks and trails, and that network can be expanded and promoted. There's huge untapped potential for tourism, and we have great opportunities in the food and beverage sector, the tech sector, wellbeing sector, and creative sector. But our businesses aren't just small, they're actually micro, and most of our businesses are, 1 or 2 people, maybe some businesses might employ a couple of people, but they need support to grow and succeed. And that's why I've been such a strong advocate for investment in economic development over the last 3 years, and to do that through an economic development trust that can access funding from central government and from the private sector. So I think we have a really clear idea what our natural advantages are. We know that Wellingtonians come here to rest, relax, rejuvenate. We don't get a lot of international visitors, but it is a great place to be, and let's hope it stays that way. We have a lot of potential to bring more people in, which will improve our economic prosperity. We'll attract businesses which will share the rates burden. So we need to invest in ourselves and bring those people in.
Thank you. Rob, is Kāpiti clearly positioning itself strategically? And if so, what do you think our strategic focus is as a district? And if not, what do you think it should be?
Well, I'm over here.
Rob.
We all need a break, don't we?
Rob, you've moved. How did you do that?
Can we have some medication in the room, please? Look, I'll tell you a story about what I think our point of difference is. I came here when I was a very young man, about 7 or 8, to this wee beach town called Pram. And I stayed on the beach and I loved it. And then when my wife and I were looking to shift back to the North Island because her parents live in Levin and we needed some free babysitting, we were looking for a town to live in, and we could have lived anywhere. And we came and stayed at another batch. And I said to my wife, and bless her, she's very patient with me, I said, I stayed in this place called Pram. This is really good, but we're now called, I didn't realise Parapara Umu and Pram were the same thing. But we moved here because it is a beautiful place to either retire or bring your family up. We have wonderful nature reserves across the region. We have a beautiful beach because we are a series of community towns. Those are the things that I hold dear. It is not bringing enormous amounts of business here because I just don't think it's possible. The reality is we actually have a beautiful environment and we need to hold on to that. We need to encourage other people to come here and enjoy it as well. But as you can see, the number of families that are moving here, they're moving here because we've got that balance right. And we need to hold on to what we've got and make sure that we plan for intensification, unlike the plan change 2 that you're hearing every now and then. Because that is our point of difference. We are family friendly, we are senior friendly, and we're climate friendly. I work in Wellington, I tell you, we are climate friendly.
Thanks, Rob. I didn't mean to rob you of your opportunity to answer that. But what do you think our strategic focus is? And if you don't think it's clear, what should it be?
The district needs a vision. And it's a little bit like what I said earlier to some people. I'm not sure if I remember if I spoke about it here, but I had a conversation with Ming Foon in Gisborne. And I said to him, Gisborne is a place where you have to travel to get to, and it's generally a return trip. New Plymouth is very similar. We've got so many people travelling through here that aren't stopping. And so I think there needs to be a concerted energy to promote some of the great strategic assets that we have here. Mentioned earlier about Ngāmanu Reserve, Staglands, the Kāpiti Island, and the tramway, and so many other things where we could have, tourism and buses interconnecting the businesses. One of the things that I think could be done, we have an airport, which is a massive strategic asset that they're bleeding and losing money. Well, how about we fence off a little bit of that area, somewhere where the gorse is, create some tarmac and surface area, and invite the Motorhome Association to come here with their motorhomes and what have you as they're travelling to and from the North and South Island, which we could also promote with international travellers that get on a motorhome or caravan and travel the country, and pay for two nights, stay for 3. Anyone likes a good deal, right? So you're going to have people come in, stay here, spending money on the local economy, because I've already alluded there's going to be over $100 million taken out of it. So we need to come up with innovative ideas as well as promoting the region, actively promoting it, not just having a website. You travel along the expressway, there's nothing to say, hey, gateway to Wellington, come to Kāpiti and have a look. So that's one of the innovative ideas that I'd like to put forward as a vision for the region.
Thank you. Kim, what do you think Kāpiti's point of difference is? What is our strategic focus? And if you don't think it's clear, what do you think it should be?
I believe that Kāpiti needs to capitalise on its cultural arts, natural attractions, and through the tourism sector. Retaining the airport is key to this role. Returning avionics and small aircraft servicing to the district would allow couples to fly in, have a game of golf, visit the attractions, the cafes, the bird sanctuaries and the art galleries and the award-winning Murrayland. They could then dine in some of our fine restaurants, stay in the Airbnb, pick up their aircraft the next day and move on. Kāpiti also has a very good, thriving technology sector. It is internationally recognised for some of its cybersecurity processes. We also have some AI development and prototyping of electronic components here in Kāpiti. A lot of that is actually undiscovered by Kāpiti Council. There is a wealth of knowledge within our senior community, and in the correct environment, this may be shared with our youth through school homework programs. This has a twofold advantage. Youth will be inspired by interacting with people that have had life skills, skills to share that are no longer passed down through generations. Many overlooked by the changes in technology. For instance, just simply calculating the change when you get paid cash in the shop is not handed or taught anymore. Secondly, the seniors will thrive from this knowledge from youth, from home economics, repairing broken items, to correct use of hand tools that once again is not taught because it's all automated now. Thank you.
Thank you. Janet, I heard you quietly say when I read this question out that you thought it was a really good question. So I'd like a really good answer. What's our strategic vision?
That about all the questions.
Oh,
so
thank
they are really good questions.
Thank you. What's our strategic?
And this is a really good question. So our strategic focus, I kind of thought about this on two different levels. So the first is, what is our community's strategic focus? What does our community want to see for the future? And I mentioned in my introduction Vision Kāpiti. And I think that's a really important piece of work, and we need to keep working on it because it allows our community to think, what is special about this place? What do we need to make our lives here better? And we heard that they care for the environment, they want opportunities for connection, they want health, housing, education to be sufficient. So there are those basic things that need to be our focus to drive our community forward. And then there's, how are we creating our point of difference? And how are we positioning ourselves for economic growth? Now, the special thing about Kāpiti is we can look north and we can look south. By looking north, we can join in with Palmerston North's regional deal, and I've made sure that the door is open for us to do that if we want to talk about educational opportunities, to talk about transport opportunities. And if we look south to Wellington, which is how we traditionally looked, Wellington is on the poise of recovery, I think. And I've joined the board of Wellington NZ so that Wellington NZ focuses as much on the regions, like it's meant to, as it does on Wellington City. We've heard about our food and beverage industries, our creative sector, which is just so incredible, and our tech sector, which is starting to be supported through Wellington NZ. And we have the Startup World Cup happening right here in Te Raukura in October, which is just so exciting. We already have investment coming into this district, big investment. And that's been building over the past 3 years. And we really need that. We need that for our economy to grow, to reduce our reliance on rates, and to really create that strategic point of difference that means that we are a mature and growing community. Thank you.
Thank you, Jen. Last one on this round, Martin.
Well,
What's our strategic focus? Is it clear? And if not, what should it be?
well, to begin with, I don't think you should be relying on Wellington or any overflow from Wellington. We need to be the owners of our own destiny, I truly think. And part of the challenge we're going to be having is keeping people away from wanting to come to Kāpiti, because it's a fantastic place. As I've mentioned, that's what drew me here. The beauty of Kāpiti, in my opinion, is it's a collection of small townships. And our townships have personality and character. And it's going to be important that we enhance and protect that character as we move forward. And growth's going to certainly be the enemy of that. That's where planning comes in, and that's where being strategic comes in as well. Each area has its own specific space. Pakokariki is just a cool, funky spot. Right through to Otaki, which is the cultural heart, I think, of the lower half of the North Island. Waikanai, traditional, down the beach area, traditional old school New Zealand beach. Paraparaumu, very, very similar situation. That's where people come to get their muse on. That's, as Liz would say, I think part of our superpower. And we don't need to attract people here. They just need to come and visit once, and then they will come back. And that's why we've got an economic development strategy, to put a process around how we do that. That's, I guess, our strategic way of doing things. Because I had a business down at Paraparaumu Beach 12 years ago, over the teacups. Was chair of the business association, went to council, hey, what's your tourism strategy? We don't have one. When are you going to have one? We're not. So that's part of the reason why I'm here. Part of the reason why I see economic development being important, and it being a pathway with regards to promoting the area. The systems are changing. People are working from home. Kāpiti is a great place. You can use the cafes, you can walk on the beach. I don't know if you've been down there recently. What's busy on a Kāpiti Coast beach? Maybe 10 people. We're blessed. But we won't, and that's part of our draw card. Righto, I'll leave it at that.
And alpaca farming. Thank you. We've got time for one more question, plus a little bonus question. Ooh. And then be afraid. And then, no, don't. It's one of your other questions, but I'm going to give you a very short one. We've got one more round, and then we'll have a little micro round, which will be a yes/no. And then we're going to get into your 30-second. Oh, God, where's the alpaca? We're going to get into your 30-second elevator pictures before we let you nice folk go home. So, Rob, you get to be first off this time, and I think you'll probably enjoy this one. Growth and intensification. Let me ask it. The pre-election report points to an additional 22,000 people living in our district within the next 25 years. Is that something you believe Kāpiti can accommodate, and what will we need to do to prepare for that?
Well, I don't want to buck the trend and say what a great question, but the reality is we know that people are coming here. I think we've all just acknowledged that people come here because it's a wonderful place to come. And when I was on council, our district plan was horrendously out of date. I talked a little bit about the work I did with the housing, but we also needed to make sure that we understood what that housing looked like for our whole community. So we updated the district plan to allow for intensification in the right places. And we went to the community and we consulted on it. And it was, I think, a really good piece of work. And it meant that our community had the number of houses and availability and the ability to grow and do it in a good and in a way that was controlled, and it suited our coastal community. What the government has done since, both political parties guilty of this, they came together and they came up with the P2P, the Plan Change 2, which effectively allows intensification across the whole of our community. In places where we don't have the resources, where places where there aren't transport hubs, where there aren't shops. And that's really throwing, our community into a little bit of chaos. We're losing the character of our community. And while, people might say NIMBY about everything, the fact is that sunshine and these kind of things are really, really important. So we have the ability to deal with growth. The problem that we have, and what our council haven't done, is actually push back against government and come up with, like the Auckland Mayor and Council have done, an alternative. So we can have growth on our terms that's planned and in the right places, so that we can keep what's special about Kāpiti, the fact that we are a set of coastal towns, and that's the way that we want it to stay.
Thank you. Dean, 22,000 people in 25 years. Can Kāpiti accommodate that, and what will we need to do to prepare for that?
There is going to be substantial growth. There is no doubt about it. Who wouldn't want to live here anyway? But the problem being is, as Rob alluded to, is Plan Change 2. And so what you're going to have is a scatter approach of housing development where you've got developers buying up 2, 3, 4 sections and building multi-developments right in the middle of, say, the gardens setting in Waikanai, or out on the beaches in places where they're not warranted and you don't have the infrastructure in place to take the load. So there needs to be a look at the planning issue around the district. And I've spoken to people out in some areas and they are saying, we welcome housing development, but it's not allowed. And then there are other people that are saying, we don't want these developments in our backyard. For good reason, because we need to maintain the character of the district. I think it's really important. Transport hubs and places where there are sort of intensified buildings and housing as it stands are good places to put these type of developments, but not in the middle of lovely little settings that are unique and part of the culture of the district. So there needs to be a strong lobby to central government to push back against what the government have set. A couple of councils have done that. Auckland was one and Christchurch the other. But you also got to have the officials within council give the elected members time to digest what they're signing off. And this is what, from what I've heard by the elected councils at the moment, was the case, where they weren't given the time to digest, and quite a number of them have said, if we could do it again, we would have done things differently.
Thank you. Kim, growth, 22,000 people. Can we fit them in? What will we need to do to prepare for that?
Not since Nathan Guy have we had a supportive MP that has championed Kāpiti District. The government has a tiered rating system on how it spends money and infrastructure in the area. Kāpiti Council has a Tier 1 rating for housing and development, which means that we have to abide by their medium to high density housing. While hospitals, medical and schooling, education is all based on a Tier 3 platform, so it's marginalised. We need the social infrastructure and the other infrastructure mentioned all to be treated at the same level. It's no use building houses if we don't have anywhere to put the children. There's no medical services available up here. The government are fully aware that they have not met their OECD requirements to build a hospital here in Kāpiti. OECD and the calculations associated with it have said a 146-bed hospital is what should be here in Kāpiti given our current population. I've already been negotiating with Health NZ, and although they said that the government's got no money, that is not the key issue. The key issue is we're entitled to it, and a 100-bed hospital may be a big start for that. A simple question is, if the government funded infrastructure like it should do, we would be able to cater for the 22,000 extra people that are coming to the district. The intensification should be around the transport hubs. It doesn't need to be out in the communities that are 5 and 6 kilometres away from a nearest train station or a school that is in that zoning. Thank you.
Thank you. Janet, an additional 22,000 people over the next 25 years. What do we need to do to facilitate that?
That's a different question than you asked everybody else.
That's because I've lost the page I'm reading on. Feel free to extrapolate what I actually meant.
I'm happy to answer that question. We need more stormwater. I'm going to be a bit boring here and say, with growth, our major problem is stormwater. We have low-lying land. Most of our buildable land is low-lying. A lot of it is flood-prone. That's come out in our recent flood mapping. And we have almost $200 million deficit in our stormwater infrastructure. I mean, that's pretty serious. So that's something that needs to be sorted. And it's really important that we're putting houses in the right place. I agree that we shouldn't have intensification in the wrong places. I don't agree that we had a choice about that. That was imposed on us by central government. But we also have a problem with trying to make sure that we don't put houses on land that's going to be flood prone in the future. And that's going to get worse as climate change starts to bite and we have increased rain events. I think Kim hit the nail on the head with central government infrastructure. Central government's always coming down on us for not spending enough on infrastructure, and then they don't provide the education facilities and the hospitals and the medical centres that we need. We need to make sure our facilities cater for the future for our growing community. For instance, the Waikanae Library takes into account the projected users and the growth that's happening within Waikanae. And we need to think what our future communities are going to need. For instance, we might need to start thinking about an indoor sports centre in Paraparaumu or some kind of facility like that. So we have good water out for 50 years. We have good infrastructure. We really need to be thinking about where we're building, making sure we have our stormwater program trucking along, and that we have the facilities that people need for the future.
Thank you. Martin.
Righto, lucky last, just about everything's been covered. But look, as Janet pointed out, the information that has been put in front of us says, yes, it can be accommodated. That's the importance of planning. We've talked to Vision Kāpiti, that's asking our community, where would you like to be in 50 years' time? And that gives us a pathway and a map with regards to achieving what our community wants. That needs to be married up by two things, infrastructure and social infrastructure. That's where the challenge comes in. We had our growth strategy in place, and then PC2 came along and pretty much we got jammed down our throats, and that was a blanket approach. We lost 3 beach precincts and 1 garden precinct in just a swoop just gone. And we've been fighting ever since to try to get back in. There's been talk around, oh, we could have pushed back. No, we couldn't have. There was a minister sitting at the other end, and it was made very, very clear to us that if we don't put this in place and we complain, it'll just get bounced straight back. And we're only a small little council. We're not Christchurch, we're not Auckland. We don't get that privilege. Auckland has its own legislation in this space. So that's what's going to be important next triennium is lobbying and advocacy in this space. We need that intensification to happen along our roading corridor and our rail corridor. Leave our beaches alone. Those places are the places with character. That's who we are. Leave them alone. And we need to fight hard for that. I certainly will be. What else have I got down here? A small council to that. No, that's about it. We can accommodate it, but we need to front foot the planning. We are doing that. It's all in our different strategies, and we update those every 3 years with a long-term plan, which you all get to be a part of.
Thank you.
So I think I need to wind that one up. Thank you very much.
And just one more.
Oh, there was one more, was it?
Only Liz, though. I mean, it's
Just
Liz.
me, just me.
It's Liz.
Sorry,
Lucky
I was wondering what the
Liz.
kerfuffle was going
Liz,
over there, but you don't want to get
Liz, the
distracted.
lucky last on this one, Liz.
All right.
Righto.
Look, we can't stop people coming to live in Kāpiti. People want to come and live here. We're going to have some degree of intensification. We just need to make sure it's in the right place. Because we want to avoid having housing on flood-prone land, that's for sure. But I think, the real issue is around those supplementary services, the medical facilities, the schools, what happens with traffic congestion. So some of those things aren't within our direct control, and I think we're going to have to do a lot of advocacy to cope with that growth. We're going to have to really spell out our needs to central government to make sure that we're not shortchanged on things like schools and hospitals. But the other really important thing is we've got all these people coming here, and obviously they're going to want jobs. And I think we really need to focus on the economic development so that people don't have to live here and work elsewhere. We've got that improved connectivity coming with Palmerston North and Wellington. And although those connections mean that we can bring more people into Kāpiti, it also makes it a lot easier for people to get out of Kāpiti. So I think we run the risk of becoming a dormitory suburb to both Wellington and Palmerston North if we don't have jobs on offer here. And that would be terrible because that means that money will leave with those people when they go off to work every day. So we do not want Kāpiti to be a dormitory suburb. I think we need to provide for people's needs here, so people should be able to live here and work here and have access to good healthcare, have access to good schools, and that's going to require a very determined approach and a lot of advocacy.
Thank you. Well done. I thought I was going to be able to fit in another cheeky little half a question, but I simply don't have time. So what we'll do instead is we're going to move straight to the... Well, actually, let's see if we can. Do you want a yes-no question?
No.
We'll move to the 30-second
What do you say,
See, I
audience?
listened to the community. The 30-second elevator pitch. This is your closing foray, folks. 30 seconds or less to tell people why you should be mayor. Dean, starting with you.
Righto. So a number of issues that need to be addressed, and I think I'm the person that can do it. I've advocated to central government on the South Granny Flat housing issue, made an appointment and sat down with the Associate Housing Minister and discussed what was needed in the Granny Flat legislation as far as deregulating some of the product and making it more accessible for people to build. I believe you need someone to lobby central government for better medical services, which the previous councillors have been talking about for a long time and nothing's been achieved. You need to also have better education. The schools need to grow for the population to come here, and I'm the man to do it.
Thank you,
Dean
Dean.
will get it done.
Kim, 30 seconds or less on why you should be the next mayor.
I believe that we need change If we didn't need change, there wouldn't have been so many councillors and people putting their hand up. The 78 are vowing for 31 positions. I believe that I can stand up and force this change with fresh ideas and be able to move forward as a community unit. Thank you very much. Vote for Kim Hobson.
Thank you, Kim. Janet, why do you believe you should be the next Mayor of Kāpiti?
For the last 3 years, I've led a positive, productive council. We've strengthened our relationships. We've given the community a chance to get involved. Our finances have never been stronger. We have a plan for the future, and we need to continue to keep Kāpiti moving forward. We need to work together. We need to strengthen our community boards. We've achieved so much, but I'm fully aware of the challenges that lie ahead. With your continued support, I believe we can build an even stronger and more vibrant Kāpiti for our future generations.
Thank you, Janet. Martin, what's your 30-second elevator pitch on why you should be the next Mayor?
Mark, set, go. Why Martin for Mayor? I bring strong, relevant skill sets to the table and now have 6 years local government learning attached. Good foundations have been put in place over this triennium and I intend to build on them in the coming term. I get things done. I am asking for the opportunity to work this business at the next level. Because make no mistake, as Mayor you can lead and drive the organisation, as we're showing during our last long-term plan and the corresponding large rates increase. Your needs have and will be my focus. That's been my motto for the last 9 years and it hasn't changed. Vote number 1 for Halliday as the next Mayor of the Kāpiti Coast, and thank you for your attention tonight. Much appreciated.
Liz, 30 seconds or less. Why should you be the next Mayor?
This is short and sweet. I'm an experienced and proven leader with strong financial management skills and a passion for my community. Vote for change. Vote for greater community engagement and transparency. Vote for Liz Coe.
And the last word goes to that Rob.
Lucky last, and I'm standing between you and your white wines. So I've asked you, ladies and gentlemen, to consider evaluating the council like a report card. And you've heard from the incumbents tell you everything's all right. It's all good. Look, don't look here at the cracks. I've suggested that there are some real solutions out there because we want a council that we're proud of, one that works for you, and mostly one that listens to you. And I've given you some examples of why I hope that you think I will be that person. Because if you give me your trust, McCann can and McCann will. Thank you very much.
Whānau, that wraps up our evening for tonight at Coastlands Theatre here at Te Raukura ki Kāpiti. I'm going to close now with a karakia whakumutunga to leave the space cleanly.
Before we do, a big hand for Sue. Great questions.
Much appreciated. Thank you for that. Kia hora te marino, kia whakapapa paunumu te moana. Hei huarahi mā tātou i te rangi nei. Aroha atu, aroha mai tātou ia tātou katoa. Hui e, tai ki e. May peace be widespread. May the sea be like a green stone, a pathway for us all this day. May we show respect for each other, for one another, bind us all together. Safe travels. Thank you so much for coming. Hope you've enjoyed it. Have a great night.